Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of Day 4 with the man Frank SCALISH. I totally forgot how to do the intro. We glitched it. I had everything unplugged last night. I was in the tornado shelter for the majority of the evening. It missed me by 0.6 miles. We haven't done a show for 3 weeks. But guess what? We're back and we're going to talk about lizards today. How are you doing, Uncle Frank? Oh, and he's muted.
Oh.
Oh, my gosh. What a disaster. What an absolute, could you hear the music get all wonky? And then I started to run the regular BTL intro.
Yeah, I heard it.
Oh,
I saw it.
It was atrocious. I wanted to just disappear.
That's what happens when you go live. Anything can happen.
Well, we haven't been live for 2 full weeks. We had the One Post Classic show. Then I was gone for a week. Then you were a little bit under the weather, so we weren't able to. You were a lot under the weather. You're still under the weather.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I got COVID, for those that didn't know, and then not only that, on top of it, I got strep throat. So
you got both.
Yeah, both at the same time. And I'll be honest with you, the strep throat was worse than the COVID.
That's why I stay away from the strip clubs.
Oh, that's priceless. Well, I'm glad to see you escaped any bodily injury from the
dude.
Storm.
It was close. I went down in the storm cellar where I have down in Shawnee. I mean, I've got a big giant storm cellar, so I went a couple hours before it actually hit, at the risk of having a retro show where Mark Jeffries talks about the weather for an hour and a half. I went down into the storm cellar. And wait till you see this. The first thing I see is this.
Oh, nice.
That's a picture. I mean, I took that picture. That is a
Black Widow.
Black Widow. Everyone knows what that looks like. So it was just hanging out in the cellar. So I had to go down with another shoe and end its life.
Well, that's good, because, if you'd have fallen asleep in there, it might have ended yours.
And then the worst part about the naders, Frank, do you have naders up there in
we do.
Ohio?
We do. We get them. I don't want to say as much as you guys, not nowhere near what you guys get.
Yeah.
But we get them, and then we get them over the lake, which is something to see, because you'll have a water spout that'll go up, a half a mile. Just a big swash of water running through, dancing on the lake.
That's scary. So the worst part is when, you had hail. We had hail.
Yeah.
More weather photos incoming. Like this size hail.
Oh, those are car crashers, man.
They're big. They're big. They were big hail. And then, but everything, you hear the sirens and you can hear the wind and everything, and you're in this tornado shelter. So there was like some tank thing that exploded. So I heard that scared the crap out of me. Then lightning hit right next to the house. That scared the crap out of me. And then everything went dead silent.
Oh, that's priceless.
And that is the worst. And then you can hear it. It sounds like a dang train. And it was 0.4 miles that way. I haven't even been, I know that they had I-40 closed last night. It was dark. I haven't been down there this morning, so I didn't think there were any fatalities, but I know there were some injuries. But I mean, it's literally like right down the road.
So that literally wiped out where I stayed.
No, it didn't wipe it out. It damaged it.
All right.
You stayed what, a quarter mile away?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a close call. We were almost a month with no day 4s, because then of course the power went out. So I woke up this morning and every light in the damn house was on.
Oh, because you left them all on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's wild, dude. That's
there were 2 deaths in Cole, which is south, is what Alex is saying. Yeah, it was bad, dude. It was bad. And then it all just kept ramping up, and then like 3 of them merged, and then they recycled and went bam right through Shawnee.
Wow.
Yeah, scary stuff.
Wow.
How you been outside of the COVID and the strep? I mean, it seems like you sound good. You're back up. What have you been up to?
Yeah, I mean, I've been just, I'm making colors. I just did a bunch of brand new crawfish colors for Bomber. Doing a lot of painting. I did a bunch of road colors. That'll be out probably next year, and just busy. I got to go fishing a couple of times. Of course, I figured, what the hell, I have COVID, so if I'm in the boat, I ain't giving it to anybody, so I'll just go fish.
Okay.
So, I did that, and everything here got really accelerated. All of our fishing, we had 3 weeks of insane, unseasonably warm weather. Water temperatures jumped up into the mid to low 60s. Bass flooded to the banks. A lot of cruisers, tough fish to catch. One day, Frankie and I went out. All we did was throw weightless dingers on them and caught the crap out of them. A lot of the big fish were skittish, and then so we caught a lot of fish between a pound and 2.5 pounds. Frankie got
Fun.
one. Yeah, Frankie got one almost 5. I spit one off that was pretty good.
You
But
what? Spit one off? I've
Yeah,
never heard that. Never heard of that saying.
yeah, he jumped and off he went. But it was took us a little while to dial in on it. And then I was retying and Frankie started sliding up shallow and he spotted a big largemouth. And so we stayed in, you know, 1.5 feet of water the rest of the day and caught them. But yesterday I went out and the water temperature was 51 degrees because we got 2 days of bad weather and the water temperature dropped 10 degrees. So that was like one of the most massive cold fronts that I've personally seen in a long time. A 10-degree drop in water temperature in 2 days is ludicrous. So I was flipping lizards because I was doing a show on lizard fishing, and I spot a bass nosed into a little buckbrush, and he's on top of the buckbrush, nosed right in. So I told my cameraman, I'm like, Joe, dude, there's a bass sitting right there. Holy crap, watch this. I'm going to catch him. So I draped my line over the branch and then dropped it down on
that's an old school move.
Right, exactly. So the nose of the bass is here and my lizard is I just got it going like that.
I feel like that's a Tommy Biffle or a Basil Bacon move. Something that I could just see with a 5600 and a 6-foot pistol grip and mono going, just yo-yoing over the branch.
Exactly. So the bass doesn't do a thing. So I made another pitch over the branch a little more and I started knocking the fish right on the head with the slip sinker. Don't. And he's staying there. And I'm like hitting him. Then all of a sudden he just goes and disappears. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I said, this ain't gonna be a good day. And so then 10 minutes later, I spot another one on an overhanging branch, sitting underneath the overhanging branch. I do the same thing, lay the lizard over the branch, get it right down in front of him, lift it up, get it right down in front of him. Doesn't do anything. He does zero. So I bonk him on the head a couple of times, figuring I'll get him pissed and he'll eat it. And he just goes and just cruises away. And I said, well, that's how our day's going to go. So there you have it. Then I got about 1.5 pounds crappie.
On a lizard?
Yeah. And then I was pissed because I left all my Bobby Garland stuff at home.
Oh, for the crappie, you think?
Yeah, because I would have said we're not filming anymore, and I'd have loaded the boat with crappie.
Is that rare for the water temp to have been in the 60s in the first part or the middle of April up where you are?
Yeah, what's more rare about it is that it jumped up in a week. Like it was 45 degrees a week prior. And then went right into the low 60s and the bass got funky. And then yesterday I got 51 degrees from 61.9. So that's a 10-degree drop. And now we're going to have the weather's going to get bad now. I think we're supposed to get 5 or 6 days of straight rain, which is going to be awesome.
That sucks
because everything's getting dirty now. But that's what I've been doing. Just trying to survive. The COVID's gone. I'm negative for COVID. I've been negative for a week.
You've been taking the home tests?
Yeah, I've been negative for over a week, but the cough is still with me. I'm still get gassed if I do heavy work. I still get gassed. You guys know from previous episodes that I do about 5.5, 6 miles every morning, and Yeah, I'm
That'll
lucky.
take a while for it to come back, but I mean, you're
Yeah.
looking good.
Well, whatever. I mean, I can't do it now. I try and I can't get
Yeah, don't push
10
it.
minutes on the bike.
All right, we got a good show today, and I went back over the archives, and I don't believe we have done this, and I don't know how it has slipped through the cracks because
It's unforgot. I mean, it's forgotten, dude. That's how it slipped through the cracks. It's forgotten.
okay, and we're diving. We're taking a deep dive in today into all things lizards, because if there is a time of the year to fish soft plastic lizards, it's right now.
It's now. It's spring. So, well, okay. So here. So first of all, probably the most underused bait today is the lizard. Um, I'm not sure why it went away, but I believe because with all the new creature baits that came out, the lizard just isn't sexy anymore. You know what I mean? I mean, with all the new creature style baits, the lizard kind of took a back seat, which is ludicrous because honestly, it flat out catches fish. I mean, it's one of my go-to flipping baits, and it's one of my go-to Carolina rig baits. So I don't understand how it fell out of favor.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that cracks me up more than anything is we call them lizards. But the reality of it is it's not a lizard at all. It's actually a salamander. Um, and it's, an amphibian. So to be more precise, it's actually, this bait was modeled after the larva stage of the tiger salamander. Matt, can you pull the tiger salamander, the larva stages? They call them water dogs. Now, I've ice fished before and caught these things through the ice, and some of them are 12 inches long. So they're fat-bodied protein bombs, basically.
Yep.
They're crazy. And I'll tell you a story too. When you pull this thing up, I'm going to tell you a story. You're going to love it.
I'm almost there.
Yeah, I'm good. I need coffee. There it is. That's it. So those things sticking out are its gills.
Okay. These things here. It's gills.
Yeah, the filaments that are sticking out of its side of its cheeks are gills. The thing is actually breathing underwater like a fish. It's the larva stage of the tiger salamander, and they're huge. They're way bigger than you think. And believe it or not, they'll bite you, but they don't hurt. It's like a frog's mouth. It doesn't hurt. So I was on this lake in New York. My buddy's father had a place there, so we used to go there and we would spearfish for walleyes and stuff on it, and do all kinds of crazy stuff. So we spent a lot of time snorkeling in the lake. So I started turning over these rocks and these big.
Oh, whoops, sorry. Let's just get rid of that.
I think they were just trying to keep warm. So that's what happens when you have a 10-degree drop in water temperature.
they just literally crawl up on top of each other
and get warm. Because they are cold-blooded creatures. So anyhow, I'm snorkeling and I get into this place with all these big flat rocks. So I start lifting them up, and it's like the water dog haven. So I grab a couple of them. I come up to the top. I tell my buddy, "You got a bucket in the boat?" He said, "Yeah." I said, get it over here, and I dropped them in the bucket. Went back down, I got some more, threw them in the bucket. Meantime, I got a half a dozen or so in the bucket. So I go out, I took a regular bass flipping jig, and I hooked the water dog on the back of the flipping jig. And I went out and started dunking grass with this thing. Dude, the bass.
Game over, huh?
Oh my God. It's the game done. It's not game over. It's done. These fish can't resist these animals. I mean, they can't. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. So back in the day, Uncle Josh had a pork trailer called a spring lizard, which was about 6 inches long and real fat. And so I started, when I would go to this lake, I would get those Uncle Josh spring lizards and put them on my my jig
Hmm.
trailer. And dude, the bass I used to catch on that was ludicrous. So that's when I started really throwing lizards a lot, because I saw what it did. And it's still, and the soft plastic lizards still do the same thing. So it became a really go-to bait for me, especially back in the day. That's
Okay,
all I flipped practically.
so what I'm used to, which I was incorrect on this, and I have seen these in the area, and I'm like, oh, I'm throwing the lizard,
What,
is
skinks?
this
Yeah, blue tail skink.
the black and blue, where you're like, oh, but that is not what you're imitating there at
No,
all, even though
because
that looks more like the lure.
right. No, that's not what you're really imitating, because for the most part, a lizard will go to the water to drink. They'll go to the water to swim, um, mostly on the surface. They don't really crawl around on the bottom. The salamander, the larva stage of the salamander, they live on the bottom. And they crawl around
Mhm.
the rocks, climb the vegetation, et cetera, et cetera. So realistically, the, the lizard is really a salamander.
The
And
larval stage
of the
of a
tiger
tiger
yeah,
salamander when you're dragging a lizard is what, if the it is what you're imitating.
that's correct.
That's good
100% correct.
stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, like Al Linder back in the old days, you remember In Fisherman and then Fishing
Do I
Fact,
remember In Fisherman? In
right?
Fisherman
Because
is seared into my
right,
childhood memory.
right, because we
Mhm,
that's what we grew up on. Well, he used those things for smallmouths and
mhm.
walleyes.
Back trolling them on Lindy rigs with spinners.
Yeah, super slow, bouncing the bottom with
Yeah.
them, just a live bait Lindy rig, and plowed them. And then he actually put them on just on jig heads. No fur, no rubber, no nothing, just a ball headed jig, and plowed them. And when I was a kid, um, I never saw one of those. Okay, except if you go to the pet store, but most of those are red-bellied salamanders. So I never really saw those until I went snorkeling on some of the northern lakes up here. And then the bell went off. And here's the crazy thing. They're all mottled when they're young. They're all mottled. Um, all forms of tans, browns, green pumpkins, watermelony. That's just how they look in the water. So any color that's from, let's just say that's pretty sweet, man.
Yeah.
That's an aquarium specimen right
Yeah,
there.
but I'm just showing the different colors while you talk about them.
Yeah. So anything that you use that's in that hue range is going to be sufficient. Now, the thing with flipping them is I look at the watercolor, because I want the bait to silhouette. So if the water's clear, I'll throw watermelon candy, and now Yum's got new colors, new custom colors in their lizards, which I'm so excited about, because that pumpkin groove is a great smallmouth color, by the way. Like Carolina rigging that color right there for smallmouth is ludicrous. So they got GB Haze, which is like a semi-transparent green pumpkin, um, with blue flake in it. This is a fish catcher, and the tails on these things are very soft. They'll wrap around the branches on them, so you got to be careful when you're flipping it. You have to be delicate. You flip it in there, and if the tail wraps around a branch, if you pull it hard, you can tear the tails. So you just got to shake it so it falls off the branch and flutters down. So that's GB Haze. I actually got a bunch of them up here. So GB Haze is a good color. Pumpkin Groove, Carolina rig that in clear water for smallmouth and just hold on. And then I'll talk about another. I'm going to talk about fishing this in a minute, but then another color which is really good in dirty water and off-colored water. These bags drive me crazy. Uh, they do because I'm like it's like childproof, and I'm like an idiot.
You're either doing Junebug, Red Flake, or Mud Fleck.
Both of them. That's what I'm getting out right now. So I want to show you these because these are crazy, and I have them. That's dirt purple. Where's my mud?
That one looked good too. There's 6 new colors, by the way.
Yes. Where's my mud flake?
That's the first time that sentence has ever been uttered on the internet, Frank.
I know. What the hell? Oh, it's
Mud
right
flake.
here. It's right here. I can't see either.
That's fine.
Not only am I an idiot savant today, I'm going blind. Okay, so here's mud fleck. This color is really cool. So it's got a dark back.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say black, but it's not pure black. And then the belly is like a dirty green pumpkin. And again, it's got the blue flake in it. This color is bad to the bone right here. And then, of course, Junebug with red flake is another one. So these
That's
are my
a killer in muddy water.
Right. These are my 2 dirty water colors right here. Although mud flake will work in clean water too because it's too natural looking not to work. So those are those 2. And then of course you saw the pumpkin groove. So here's dirt purple. Dirt purple's another one. It's real natural looking. It's an ugly brown color, darker back, ugly brown, and it's got just a little bit of purple flake in it. It's not overblown with flake, which I like. And this is really natural looking. As if you look at the tiger salamander larva, it's very natural looking. Dirt purple. So it's real. They're really fantastic. And then so I'm going to show you. I'll show you another color as soon as I start talking about these things. So here's what I do. There's a lot of ways to fish these lizards. A lot of ways. I have 3 that I love. So I'm only going to talk about the 3 that I really fish a lot. Now I've put them on shaky heads. I've used them as jig trailers, the whole 9 yards. But the real thing that I do with them, I Carolina rig them, obviously. I flip with them, obviously. So I Carolina rig with them because it's insanely natural. It's just hovering down there. It's moving along. The appendages are doing what they got to do, and it's real natural. So when I'm Carolina rigging a lizard, I'm fishing it a little bit slower than I would, let's say, a spine craw or something. So I fish it a little bit slower, a little bit more deliberate. Still the same Carolina rig setup, 3/4 ounce weight, 50-pound braid, mono leader, same setup, nothing different. So that's pretty much. I don't have to get into the Carolina rig because we've talked about it a million
times. You can go watch
times.
that show if you want to.
Right now, flipping. Now here's the trick to flipping. To actually, this is the best success I've ever had. I use the absolute lightest possible weight that I can get away with, because I want that lizard when it goes in, I don't want it going straight to the bottom. I want it to float to the bottom. So generally what I'll do is I'll have a 1/4 ounce slip sinker on, and I'll have one rod with 17 or 18 pound fluoro and another one with 20, both of them with a 1/4, because the 20 will slow the fall. It'll make it fall slower than the 17. And then I got to pay attention. You have to pay attention when you're flipping this bait. If the bass takes it on the fall, okay, he's hitting it because the bass will be suspended in the bush or the tree trunk. If he hits it on the fall, all right, he's suspended there. So the slower the fall, the more fish you're going to catch, because you don't want it to get beneath them. If the bass hits it on the bottom, that means he's relating to, if you're fishing a willow bush or a buckbrush, he's relating to where all the branches come to the bottom in the root system, and the bass is laying right up against the root system. In this case, You want to always take your flip right down the dead center of the bush, so that bait goes all the way down to the stalk, because the bushes will expand out, and if you edge cast to them, just cast on the edges, you never get to where that bass is actually sitting. So you got to pay attention to this stuff when you're flipping. It's dynamite in the grass. It's absolutely deadly in the grass. And again, I use the lightest weight I can to get by with. Now, obviously, if you're fishing in 20-mile-an-hour winds, you got to up your weight size. Or if the cover's insanely thick and you can't get through with a 1/4 ounce, you got to bump it up a little bit. But I only bump it up in 16th ounce increments until I start getting bit, because I don't want to be too heavy. With the lizard, I never want to be too heavy. And so that's really my flipping trick. Now, the other technique, and this escapes a lot of people. I throw it weightless. And when you go to the lake, you know how you can see, and Matt, the picture you showed me before is perfect illustration of that. The invisible zone. You can see the bottom, and then all of a sudden you can't see the bottom. That's the invisible zone. So in a pre-spawn scenario, even post-spawn, early post-spawn, the bass will relate to that invisible zone. Before they pull up and as they start to pull back, they relate to that invisible zone. That's when I chuck a weightless lizard. Now, sometimes what I'll do is you can add a split shot or a small micro swivel above it, just to get a little bit more weight to get it to float down for you. But here it's generally weightless. And basically I'll throw it out into the end of the zone where I can see the bottom, and let it flutter down into where I cannot see the bottom any longer. And what happens is, a lot of times you don't even feel the strike. All of a sudden your line just starts to move. And that's money. So that's another. This is the other color that I was going to show you that I didn't talk about. It's watermelon pearl. Now this tends to lend itself good for that stuff too, because not only is it, salamandery, but it could also represent bait fish to them. So that's kind of a cross color. I call it a crossover color. Is it my go-to color? Probably not. But will I throw it weightless? Absolutely. And so that's kind of my approach to the lizard, essentially. Springtime being the season to fish it, but I never overlook it in the summer when I'm structure fishing either, because I've caught way too many big giant bass on them to
Now,
not.
is it hard to cast on a bait caster weightless because it doesn't have the salt content that the Cinco does, or are you throwing that on a spinning rod? Run through your setup for the weightless.
Okay, I do throw it on a bait caster, but I also throw it on a spinning rod. If I throw it on the spinning rod, I used to use straight fluorocarbon on the spinning rod for it. But with today, the braids and everything, I'll go braid fluorocarbon leader and throw it weightless in today's world. In the old days, we didn't even have fluorocarbon. I used to throw it on mono. But the fluorocarbon is way better because it helps get the bait down. It helps sink the bait. On a bait caster, I'll throw it on 10-pound fluoro. I won't. I can throw it on a bait caster pretty good, pretty far.
Okay. And you said EWG?
Yeah, I use a Mustad Megabyte.
Okay.
Ultra point on it, black nickel. But any hook you want. 2/0's usually my go-to.
That's
size.
what I'm saying. You can oversize a lizard hook that kills a lot of action out of it with a 4 or a 5, and then all of a sudden you come out in the throat. Now your whole lizard
doesn't move. Yeah, it doesn't move. You want the lizard to go over a branch like that.
Are they going to headshot that lizard 9 times out of 10?
Every time.
Okay, so you can have a small hook in it. You don't have. They're not coming up from behind and sucking it in. They're headshotting it.
Yeah, because they can't. It's hard to swallow the salamander when he's trying to swim away from you. It's if you take them if they take the salamander by the head, it almost swims down their throat. You know what I mean? So the bass eat things the easiest way they can. Like a lot of times, like if a bass takes a shad, okay, like here, Milliken was on the other day talking about his glide baits. A lot of times, especially the bigger shad, a bass will smoke that thing. Maybe blow it back out of his mouth because when he hits it, he stuns it, blows it out of his mouth, and then takes it in head first.
Okay.
So a lot of times, with the glide baits, the first hit they get, they're smoking that bait.
Okay.
So anyway, so they do the same thing with the lizard, is they want to eat it head first. So they usually pick it right up by the slip sinker.
All right, and then I want to go through a couple questions on each of these techniques. Then on the flipping technique, this is just came to my mind. Are you pegging the sinker, or are you not pegging it so you get a little bit of flutter with the salamander after it hits the bottom?
No, I always peg it because a lizard's, the thicker the bush, in other words, the more skinny little branches it has in it. Okay, it's a longer bait. It's got a lot of appendages, so when you flip it, you want to have pegged so it can get through those branches. Because if it separates, the sinker will go down and the lizard will stay up.
Okay, that makes sense. Always the quarter, and you're staying with this even when you're flipping, or you're staying with the same hook, or then are you going to go to a straight shank? Okay.
No, I don't use straight. You guys are going to kill me. I do not use straight shank hooks for flipping.
Any reason for that, or just have had good success with the EWGs and there's no reason to change till you start farming them?
Well, two reasons. That's one reason. I just don't lose fish on it the way I fish them. I don't lose fish on them. But with the straight shanked hook, I have a lot of problems with because you can't text pose it. And I like to text pose it. So with a straight shanked hook, you're putting the hook into the meat of the plastic, and it's barely pointing out of the plastic. Okay, so what happens is once it gets a little war in it, the hook always pokes through, and I wind up snagging it all the time. That's why I quit fishing a straight shanked hook flipping, because when you're in the groove and you're going down the bank and you're pitching. You know the hot spot. So you pitch to the hot spot, you boink it down, pick it back up, pitch to the next one, keep going and covering your water. What happens is, if every time you snag up, you're wasting time, or worst case scenario, you're giving up a bite. And I don't like that. And so that EWG style hook for me doesn't hang up as much. And I'm just not losing fish on it. So I don't see a reason to change it.
When you're flipping, explain when you're going to flip a Christie critter or a woolly hogtail, and when you're going to flip a lizard, because they seem to be very similar. Do you think that those fish think it's the same thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's similarities to it for sure.
But this time of year, they seem to just smash the freaking lizard out of hate, anger, and vindictiveness.
Well, think about this, okay? You've got essentially a 6 to 8 inch animal down there that crawls around on the bottom, and the minute it gets into your nest, it's eating all your babies because they're protein eaters.
Yeah,
they even eat little fish. Water dogs even eat little fish. So it's going in that nest, and it is literally gorging itself on all those eggs. So the bass don't take kindly to that at all. Plus it's such a good food source for them. I mean, it's insane. So they're pretty cool creatures, man.
Okay.
Weightless.
And then I had another question there. You mentioned it. You said 6 to 8 inches. The 3 common sizes of lizards are going to be an 8-inch lizard, a mag lizard, the 6-inch, which is the standard lizard that you've been
Right.
showing on the show, and then also a junior 4-inch lizard.
Right.
Available in a number of different varieties and
Right.
whatever. But
Right.
how do you determine what size lizard? Because I know for a fact there are certain times that I have fished. I had one year on Lake Thunderbird where I caught 2 8-pounders on a June bug 8-inch mag lizard. And
Absolutely.
I thought that was the deal. But then I've also, when I grew up in Illinois, the bait of choice was a black and blue 4-inch lizard. Very diminutive little lizard.
Right. Zoom. I think Zoom's is 5.
Yeah, this was the old power bait lizard. The two-piece with the little flat body with the arch, the high spot in the middle, the blue tail, and then they stopped making them.
Right. I used to pitch on the Ohio River, the 5-inch lizard a lot.
Okay.
Which is substantially smaller than the 6, believe it or not.
Yeah. So how do you go through your progression to determine which size?
I quit throwing the little one because I find that the 6-inch lizard gets me as many bites as the small one does. So I quit throwing it and went to the 6. Now the 8-inch lizard, I'll throw the 8-inch lizard also, and I'll Carolina rig an 8-inch lizard also. Because the bigger, the bulkier. I've caught these water dogs, and they're not minuscule. They're big. Like when you grab them, you can hold them, in your hand like that. They stick out on this side, and the tail sticks out on that side. They're beefy little critters.
What type of salamander did you say it was again?
Sorry. Tiger salamander. Okay. You could probably type in water dog, and it'll come up.
I just wanted to let people know where you can find this thing.
Yeah, and the craziest thing was the first time I caught one through the ice, I was like, what the hell is that? I mean, I knew what it was when I got it up, but when I was fighting it, bringing it in, I didn't know.
Does that look right?
You know what? It looks really right, except that New York is polluted with them things. And
okay, well, this is the eastern tiger salamander. So, I mean, but they're not really out west then. It's mainly...
Well, they got a pretty strong hold in Texas.
That's south.
But, I mean, oddly enough, they have them in Pennsylvania, New York, all of Ohio. So I don't, that map is probably incorrect, or it's being species specific, because I've seen them all over the place.
I think it's just being species specific.
I do too. But they're really cool. They're fun baits to fish. I love it. The funny thing is, Yum needed to add colors in the lizard in a big fluffy way, and they finally did, which is really good for me, because there's certain color hues I really like, and now they're there. We have them.
Here's another one that's saying it's pretty much all over the country.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's not. I've seen these things everywhere I've been, practically.
Okay.
So it's not like,
when I mean, obviously these things don't go away when the spawning season is over.
No.
Why, even though the lizard is underrated right now, why does it seem to become even less utilized after the spawn? So we're talking June, July, August, September, October, November, because I mean, would those fish not still eat a protein packed 6 to 8 inch salamander? That
100%.
Okay. That's so why do we stop throwing them?
Because look at all the different creature style baits out there. The lizard's plain. It's plain Jane, but it's so realistic. It's unbelievable. It just became, mud puppy, water dog, same thing. There's no difference. There's a bunch of names for them. Oh yeah, you aren't kidding, dude. When I was on the Hudson River, they were everywhere.
The Adirondacks in New York are filled with them, says he.
Yeah, they're money, dude. They're money. I'll even admit, I live baited them. I got a bunch of them and used them. They don't play. Those things catch fish.
It is the equivalent, I think, of the sculpin in the trout world.
Yeah, dude.
Would you
100%.
Would you not agree with that?
I will totally agree with that. I mean, the sculpin, we're going to get off topic here,
That's fine.
But I tie a lot of my steelhead patterns are
Mhm.
articulated sculpin patterns. And to be honest with you, brown trout, they can't handle it. They got to eat it. Brown trout are very sculpin oriented, and the bigger the better. With brown trout. Now the steelhead crush them, but the ones I'm tying for steelhead are typically about 2 inches long, 1.5 inches, 2 inches long, are the ones I tie for steelhead. But I always make them articulated so they move.
I do want to show. I do want to show this picture because I think it's the best representation. I mean, that looks exactly like.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's it. And here, this is crazy. Those things are way fatter and bigger than you think they are.
Yeah.
They're super cool, man. They're super cool.
That's good stuff. So C-rig, flipping, 1/4 ounce sinker, and weightless 3/0 or 2/0 2/0 EWG, changing your line weight, sticking primarily with the 6-inch.
Yeah, I do throw the 8, but we don't currently make an 8, so the 8 I'm throwing is a Zoom.
I got you. Pretty straightforward then.
Yeah, it's not a complicated thing. It's just you got to throw it.
Okay, I saw a question on here. I do have to ask this. Are you more concerned with bottom composition when you're throwing a lizard than you are with something else? Like, is there a certain type of area or part of the lake that they like to live in that you can, this is, what these fish are targeting on here? Because I would assume they're bottom-oriented creatures.
They're bottom-oriented creatures. They do travel and they do climb. They'll be all over the grass and all over the rocks. They'll be all over any hard cover. So basically when I'm structure fishing,
mm-hmm.
I'm always looking for hard bottom. I'm not structure fishing in mud. It's always the harder bottom. When I'm flipping and pitching, you're usually throwing to hard cover, bushes, blowdowns, that sort of thing. These animals will climb up into the limbs. They'll climb up the grass because here, look, they'll eat the little snails. They'll eat the little mosquito larvae. They eat little fish. They're protein eaters.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, your traditional stuff that you would look for bass fishing anyway is their habitat, really. But if you remember when I snorkeled, I was catching them, lifting up the flat rocks and catching them underneath the flat rock. So they do like to hide under stuff. So you have to keep that in mind.
That's good stuff, Frank. I did notice this is the time of the show then where we do see if there's anything new in the paint shop.
Oh yeah, dude. I actually did this color, and
I think you sent me this color last year for has this been around for a year?
If I sent it to you, it was one of my painted ones.
We're talking about the olive orange craw?
Yeah, this thing's wicked, man. This is a wicked color. That's olive over orange, and that is wicked. Yeah, I did that color about a year ago. So if I send it to you, Matt, that's
okay. Let me ask you this: Speed N, early in the year. I don't think I've ever asked you this. You're a color guy.
Yeah.
You're obviously on jerk baits, which are suspended, which most of your fish are coming from the bottom looking up. You're concerned about the pearls, the glitter, and the gut bags on that.
Correct.
On a Speed N, a wigglewort style bait, something that's banging around in the rocks, are you going to be more focused on the top and sides of that bait than what the bottom look like, because the fish are going to be coming down on top down to the fish.
Yeah, the top of the bait becomes very important, but the belly color is equally as
It is
important
equally important.
because
Okay.
as it ricochets off, if it ricochets off the rock, it gives you that belly flash.
Okay.
And so you have to keep with crankbaits, I keep the whole thing in mind. You know what I mean? Because the belly color on a bottom root and crankbait, the belly color becomes important on the ricochet.
Okay, that makes sense.
But
One more
that
lizard.
the speed end here, look, dude, that bait was designed specifically for cold spring applications. Okay. And not that I want to go off in this tangent, but I kind of do. Um, this bait also excels when the grass is growing, but not at the top. So if I've got grass 4 to 6 feet deep, in other words, 6 feet from the surface of the lake, okay, I'll run this right over the top of the grass. I did a video last year. It was post spawn, and the fish were just starting to move their way out to summer pattern, but they weren't on summer pattern yet. And I got on these long fingers of grass that came out before the flat drops down, and I was literally burning that over the tops of the grass, and I smoked them. I mean, smoked them. So you can't ignore this bait outside of the cold water elements either, because it's situational. If you're in the right situation, it's hard to beat it.
Ooh, it's sparkly.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. That bait's just beautiful, man.
There you go.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you know
You do a
what, you
good job
guys,
with those videos.
thanks. That's actually Dustin. That video wasn't me. That was Dustin.
Yeah.
But
I still feel bad that they made a Color 7 video pointless because it's gone in 2 minutes. They did like one of those fancy videos explaining why you needed it.
But don't forget, it's coming back. We're gonna have them shortly.
Should be
The
within
other
the
thing,
next couple months, right?
yeah, yeah. The other thing, remember, all these the new custom colors in the lizards is out. The new custom colors in the 4-inch dingers are out, and the BTL capital BTL 100 code works till the end of June for 15% off.
I
So
always keep forgetting that.
yeah, I do too, because it was
Look
a
at that.
couple month promotion. Money, look at that.
15% off through June 30th. Use code capital BTL100, BTL100 at lurenet.com.
Yeah, and you can get the speed ends and the lizards. But yeah, so I like, what's funny, dude? We're talking about lizards. Do you remember when the first time Bassmasters went to Cayuga? I think it was Cayuga. Shaw
For the
Grigsby.
Open?
Yeah, well, no, it might have been an elite event.
It was before that.
Or a top 150
Yeah,
event.
it's probably that. Yeah. Was that a lizard deal?
Oh my God, dude. Shaw hammered him, Carolina rigging a lizard. Hammered him. So that's pretty funny. So
My
some
second
guys stay
fish on
with it.
Toledo Bend was caught using a Carolina rig, Frank. It called, so I still have never weighed one in on it, but it was in the box for a while.
Well, you and I are going to get together, and I'm going to strap a Carolina rig in your hand. And
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I gave you a fairly decent starting point with the crappie, so you could return the favor with the sea rig.
Fairly decent. You've created an animal.
Have you been able to do that yet?
No, dude. I got Frankie gave me his forward facing stuff, and the little connector is not staying in the box. It wiggles, and so the signal comes on and off. So I have to get that fixed. And now I'm thinking about just going to the high def stuff right off the rip, and not even worry about it, and just get the good stuff. Because after fishing, dude, after seeing what I saw on your unit, I can't get something that's not that good.
That would be the new Garmin. I got the Garmin 10-inch screen. which was an upgrade from the 9-inch Garmin that I had,
Right.
which was big. And then I put it on the beat down outdoors mount, which allows you to raise it up,
elevate it
36 inches, 33 inches.
Which was actually kind of nice because we weren't like, bending over staring at the
you could
screen
just
the whole
look.
time.
And then the new Garmin transducer, which has a slightly larger cone and a little bit more depth of field on it.
It's twisted. But I'm probably gonna stick with the Lowrance just because all my units are Lowrance and I'm kind of anal that way. But
tell you what, that live scope's hard to beat.
Yeah, I know. Dang it. I know. I saw the fish, dude. You could tell what they were. It was kind of sick. It really was. But no, the answer to your question is no. I haven't had the opportunity to really get after it. And I'm starting to see where there's a hole in my fishing game now. Where I believe that I'm missing something. Which probably a year ago, I would have told you I don't need forward-facing sonar. I catch enough fish anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Now I will tell you that I want it because there's a missing gap. No, there is. There's a missing gap because about a week ago I was out with Frankie and we were smallmouth fishing, but we didn't go together. We brought both of our boats. He went one way, I went the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And I slept in because the day before we went fishing and we didn't get home till 10:30. So I slept in. I said, "You go when you go. I'll go up there. I'll call you when I get up there. And then if you catch anything, just call me, give me a depth range. That's all I give a crap about." And so he's like, "Okay." So he goes up, he left before me, got there probably an hour and a half before me, and he had gotten on some jerkbait fish. And I said, "Okay, cool," because the plan was we were going to go throw jerkbaits. And so I said, "I'm going to cover these miles, you cover those miles, and we'll divide and conquer." And the lake, when he got there, it was overcast, low light, little breeze, and he found this one rock pile and he was catching them. He caught like 9 or 10 off of it, I think. And so he called me and he said, "Are you at the ramp?" Blah, blah, blah. And I said, "I'm almost there." He goes, "Oh, I just caught some, throwing the jerk bait, blah, blah, blah." And he actually caught him on a color that I had painted for him. And so I'm like, sweet, because I want to throw that color. So I'm like, sweet. So I get out there, I launch the boat, and I decide that I'm going to run the farthest point away from where I launched and work my way back to the ramp. This way I'm getting closer to where I got to be instead of farther away. So I do that, and I go, and I'm probably 9 or 10 miles from where we launched. And lo and behold, the sun comes out, lake goes slick flat. Like mirage slick flat. So I'm jerk baiting, and I'm not raising fish. I'm not seeing anything on my 2D sonar. I'm actually getting kind of really upset, but I haven't been here in 15 years. So I'm really getting upset because I should be catching them and I'm not. Mm-hmm. So I got off the jerk bait. I started drop shotting and snapping tubes and doing everything I usually do. Then I'm not catching anything. So I said, well, there ain't enough fish shallow yet. I'm going to check some of my deep stuff. So I run out and I get all the way out where the walleye trollers are and start working my way in from there. And I'm not catching anything. And the day's getting away from me, like literally getting away from me. Well, Frankie called. He said when the sun came up and the lake went flat, he quit catching them. So I said, crap. So in the morning, the first rock pile that I went to, I saw a big smallmouth run some bait fish out of the water. So I said, well, they're here. I'm just not catching them. So as I was working my way back in and the day's getting away from me, and we didn't have a long day. It was a shorter day. I said, I got to go back. The wind's picking up now. I got to go back to the rock pile. So I go back and I put on a Norman, and my first cast, I catch one over 6.5 pounds on it. So I'm like, holy smokes. So I idle up to the next rock pile. I throw out there. I catch one over 5.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm on something now. I got 20 more of these rock piles I can hit. So Frankie calls and he's like, Dad, I'm headed back to the ramp, blah, blah, blah. I said, dude, I got it. I'm dialing in on it. And he goes, okay, but if you come back, let me know if you're going to come back or not. And I said, yeah, I look at the clock. It's already 4:00 and I had to be home. So I'm like, yeah, all right. I said, I'll meet you at the ramp. So I put my stuff away and drove back to
After
the ramp.
jacking those?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't particularly envision you doing that.
No, I would not have done it ordinarily, but I promised my wife I would be home at a reasonable time. And I had a pretty good drive to get home and a pretty good drive to get back to the ramp. So
fair enough. One more question to wrap up the Lizard Show. And then we've made it through a day 4 without any technical glitches, and neither of us are sick, and I still have a house. So that's all positives.
It's all positive.
The age-old question of dyeing the tail chartreuse.
Yeah. If I dye the tail chartreuse, I'm literally putting 1/4 of an inch. I don't dip the whole half the bait in that thing. I can't stand that.
Okay.
I just use it as just a different color flash, just a tiny little different color flash. I've had days where if I dyed the tail, I didn't catch them. And if I didn't dye the tail, I smashed them. And I had the absolute opposite happen. If I dyed the tail, I smashed them. If I didn't catch them. So I always have 1 and 1 until I see what the preference is.
I like it.
Yeah. I mean, don't make it complicated. Just get them and fish them and you'll be happy.
Does that music sound slow to you? Like it's just a little bit lagging?
Maybe it's just a Loki kind of day.
Can you hear the music though?
Oh yeah, I hear it.
Does it sound good?
It. Yeah.
To me, it sounds like it's lagging.
Here,
we'll try it again. We'll see how it...
See what you got, man.
Here it comes. Now it sounds... Hear it? Sounds wonky.
I don't know, dude. I can't. Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, this has been another edition of Day 4 with Frank Scalish. Day 4, number 109. We reach 1010.
110.
Next week.
1010 would be 1010.
It might happen.
It better happen.
It might happen.
Better happen.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being patient as we get through the sickness and the storms and we are back.
We're back in action.
And we're rolling. This has been another edition of Day 4, all about lizards. We'll talk to everybody next week.